Hey there, and welcome back to the episode of the B2B Marketing Asia podcast. Really excited for today's show. We have Laura Erdem, who is an account executive at Dreamdata. So we'll kick it off, and I'd love to find out more about how did you start social selling within your organization? What are some of the things you've learned along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. It's Dreamdata social selling. We always knew that we need to be out there on LinkedIn, and we were like in bits and bytes a little bit. But it all started with that one post where I shared the story about how we won a client at Dreamdata. And there was a screenshot of one Dreamdata's view and like the full attribution of a one deal. And then we got Chris Walker to comment on it that attribution doesn't work. That was the start of everything because the post went over the roof. Even though the comment was not that positive, but the visits of our website doubled. The visits first touch from social activities has tripled in that week. They said, okay, this is cheap marketing. We have to go do this. Because we also got a lot of demand coming from, especially from there, because people started to identify us with attribution. So we decided that we need to go for it. And we started with an experiment. Let's say all of us in the revenue growth team, which is sales, marketing, and customer success, would start posting regularly. And if we reach 300,000 views in a quarter, then we go for a dinner. Peanuts. Like we knew we're going to reach it and all that. But just that start of enablement that everybody can post, and it's not something very heavy to do for all of us, but just to grow demand at Dreamdata. So that's how it all started.
That is one of the most simplest ways. I guess everyone loves a good free dinner, so that's good advice for everyone. The other advice, it sounds like, is to get Chris Walker to disagree with your post.
That is a quite easy thing to do as well, if you talk about attribution.
Awesome. So we'll talk a little bit more about attribution, but now that you got the team on board, maybe had a nice dinner together, how did you sustain the momentum? Because I know a lot of folks are wondering, you've got some good success. How do you keep the team going, creating LinkedIn posts? Obviously, you have continued, but how do you get the team to continue as well?
Yeah, and it's not easy. People are different and people are excited about different things. I find exciting to be able to post every day and to learn the copywriting of what works at LinkedIn and so on. But for the whole team, the very important thing is support from the management. So our co-founders are active on LinkedIn as well. As long as they are, and as long as they celebrate together with us every single success, no matter how small it is, then it's much easier to be going as well. Then we have a Slack channel where we post all of our posts, where we can see that there is activity every day from somebody in the team. Another thing, then we help each other to create posts as well. So I think it's almost more than a month ago, I kicked off the social selling, more or less kind of, I don't know what you call it, like support team. But we created a Notion channel where we keep some of our ideas together, some of whatever tools are working. And then we do weekly power sessions of 15 minutes to talk about whatever single subject together. So it just keeps the momentum. And everybody knows that everybody is posting once in a while. Not everybody's doing it every day. Some of the people are doing once a week, but as long as it's there, as long as everybody's trying to do something together, then it's easier to catch the people who would like to do it more often than just.
Yeah, I think the ongoing coaching, it sounds like, really helps keep people not only on track, but getting them to come up with the ideas as well, too. Because I know that's one thing people always ask me, how do I come up with ongoing ideas? And I guess if you're doing it as a group, as a company, that it's far easier to agree on ideas and then execute on those.
Definitely. The other day we sat down with our customer success managers. We hired two of them and they were not active on LinkedIn at all. One of them, I think he even mentioned that he hasn't even posted that he started at Dreamdata. I said, come on, you have to. But then we sat down for an hour and started to ideate some posts, what they could write about. We didn't write them, but we came up with a lot of ideas. What is it that they could talk about? They could talk about their job, their problems, their customers' problems of, like both personal and work related and so on. And those two persons are doing amazing. Their posts are really creative. They're totally different of what we were used to post about. And that's really beautiful. I'm looking forward to see what happens in like maybe half a year's time, if that continues as well. But even if it doesn't, then they got a flavor of what does it mean for LinkedIn to react to your post? What does it mean that it's not only your friend and family who and like previous colleagues that are commenting and liking your post? So that's, I think, is beautiful.
Yeah, and I'd love to hear, because obviously I follow you a lot on LinkedIn. You're very active. I'd love to hear, one, what are some of the things that you've realized that are working on LinkedIn? Maybe some of the things that aren't working? Yeah, first off.
Yeah, so, well, working, to start with, I was not active, neither commenting nor liking a lot other people's posts. I noticed that the more you give on the platform, the more both you comment, but at the same time genuinely care about some of the people who are having some troubles, helping out and so on, the better place it becomes to be on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a very positive platform. You very rarely get negative comments. And Chris Walker's comments was not a negative one. It was just critical. It was great. And so commenting and working together with people as if they were your colleagues and helping out each other, this part works very well. And about the things that are not working, tell me about it. I've been there. So I'm a classical salesperson coming from enterprises. And when I started at a startup and started posting on LinkedIn, then there are people who react to your post because they are useful, some of them at least. And then if you try to pitch your ICPs right after you posted or they liked something, you're going to get burned, or you're going to be a very sad person because nobody reacts. So I've been there as well. It's like trying to engage with people, oh, you like my post, so let's like, are you interested? Or some of them even, oh, you asked what tool is this? This is Dreamdata, go try it out and so on. It's like, and nobody's responding. It's like, what's going on? It's a beautiful tool and you even like the post. So no pitching, helping each other, and the demand is coming slowly.
Yeah, I was going to ask as well, too, because obviously you're getting a lot of views and engagement. How has it helped in terms of demand? You mentioned a little bit like people obviously now know more about what the product is, thanks to, for me, your posts, and obviously following your co-founders and some of their people. I get a better understanding of what you guys do. Maybe you can share a little bit more in terms of how that has helped maybe on the demand side?
Definitely. So since the hype of the post with Chris Walker, when we started social selling, the demand has not been falling at all. It has been growing all the time. And we see spikes of the more exciting posts that we generate as well, but we see spikes of direct traffic and first touch social, which is LinkedIn as well, organic. So from those touches, then we're able to see that the demand is growing as well. And then it comes very slowly. It takes around, what was it? I think 95 days for our client to purchase Dreamdata. No, wait. It's 2 months for them to convert from a sign up to an MQL itself. And even before the sign up, there is a long time when they're investigating Dreamdata. So those 2 months are left for them to become an MQL really. We're following the growth of the posts through direct traffic, through social organic itself, and then slowly the customer base is growing too. But of course, Dreamdata is growing as well. So it's like everything is helping each other. You're bigger, you get more clients, more people to refer, and so on. But it is a very big accelerator as well. To give an example now, we're releasing a new feature of Dreamdata, and we've but no matter what, we need to make some buzz about this, that this is really cool and this is new in the market and so on. So one of our biggest ways to do it is on LinkedIn. And it's not only that our own page is talking about, woohoo, look at this beautiful feature, but everybody from Dreamdata is posting something about it. And it doesn't have to be copy paste of whatever we have produced in marketing, but it is people talking about content. The more you talk about content, the more people will start to relate to us as somebody who can measure content rather than just attribution, as in the classical way everybody would know it.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons I was asking about attribution is because that's one of the questions I get all the time, being in the content marketing, the podcasting world, what is the ROI or what is the attribution of, for example, podcasting? and content marketing, and basically what you're doing as well too. You're doing social selling, but you're creating a lot of content that is building that awareness. But it goes back to obviously what you guys do as a product. So how do you answer that question when people come to you and say, hey, Laura, can I measure or track my brand activities to my demand activities? So let's give podcasting as an example, if there are any clients that are in the space like this.
Yeah, this is a very typical one. And this is a misconception of people thinking about attribution as we have to give credit to every single touch that we can measure. Everything we can't measure cannot be scaled. And it's absolutely wrong, because there is so much going on before the demand is captured. What we actually talk mostly about is the importance of demand capture. Demand generation is great, but demand generation in terms of real demand generation, where people get awareness and brand from your own company, rather than you trying to push people to lists and to capture that through that. This is not demand gen, this is demand capture. And this is what we stand for. You have to understand, where do people find you when they know about you? And then you can scale those channels as well and be there all the time. If we talk about, you can't measure who has actually listened to your podcast, and you can't really know if I told somebody else to go listen to Joe's podcast and then later somebody else would come in as a demand. But there are several things you can do as a podcaster in order to track it better. So when you release episodes, for example, your URL, unique URLs, could be the focal point of the whole podcast. Then you would know if they're landing with specific MTUs into your podcast, then you would know that, where do they come from? Where have they learned about you? The next part, and this is what everybody's talking about in buzzing on LinkedIn, is implement questions of where have they heard about you from? Mm-hmm. And if you start hearing about podcasts, then it's much easier to know if it's working as well. Then you can go with promo codes if you want. That would also help you to capture some of it. Then if you've got a host on the podcast, you can tag those on your CRM as well. If you are aiming to, let's say you invited me because you would like to sell to Dreamdata, tag them that they've been on your podcast. Then it will be one of the points why they maybe were interested to buy your product later on. And another really cool thing is that I think most of the people are doing it as well, is transcribing your podcast. Because as long as you transcribe it and put it on your website along with your blogs, so most of the text will be captured by SEO as well. So it's like kind of easier to win the SEO lottery as well, if you are in that one.
Yeah, no, I think those are some pretty practical tips. I think, like you said, it is difficult. And so even for us, clients will tell us, oh, hey, I forwarded it to my colleague and they love it. Or someone told me, I was catching up with them, they said, I listened to it in the shower, and I was like, okay, that's great. I already know about that information, but that's wonderful. So obviously stuff like that doesn't appear like any dashboard, but it does help the business when people are coming to you for our services and things like that. So that was the kind of question around that. And yeah, no, so I think there's some really practical tips. One thing that I guess, and additionally, going back to the URL and things like that, is one thing we're trying to do more of is create snippets. You talked about transcription, and what we try to do is break the podcast into bite-sized snippets on social. And now we do that obviously on our own channels, but one thing that I think we should be doing more of, and I see some other podcasters doing, is sharing those snippets with, for example, the guest. So let's say that, Laura, we have a 30-minute conversation, but you want to share maybe a 1-minute snippet with your target audience. Obviously, I'm not sure if there's a way you can track that if it's on someone else's channels, but I think that's still a great way to, like you were saying, expand the reach, expand the awareness in a way that may not be trackable in the end.
Absolutely. Any type of repurposing is helping you to show your podcast and your brand to more people. And that's great, but that part you can't track really. So hopefully the question, where have you heard about us from? It wouldn't be answered in the shower. It would be answered, I've heard about you from the podcast.
Yeah. No, I think that's the answer I always give people as well too. So I'm glad we're aligned on that. Having the sales team just catch up and say, how did you hear about it? It's like, it's the most simple one, but agreeing or disagreeing with Mr. Walker or whatever, there are some things that can't be tracked in the end. So yes, you can look at it in a tool like Dreamdata and understand where some of the channels driving some of the traffic and demand and stuff like that. But on the tail end, there are things that, for example, if you share an episode on WhatsApp, now obviously, as far as I know, it's something you can't track, that whole concept of dark social. It's a private community. Obviously, you can't track some of those things. So I guess the question for marketers is, how much should you be tracking when you know that a lot of this stuff is taking place maybe back in the day in the office, just having chats with your colleagues or sending something to your friend via WhatsApp, that some of that stuff can't be tracked. So I guess, how do you balance the two as a marketer?
You have to be tracking as much as you can. You have to be tracking everything you can, and you have to be obsessed by doing it, meaning that tracking, giving a touch point to every single possible touch of your client. And then everything that happens and is untrackable, then it's much easier to start seeing trends. Where are your prospects coming from? So even if, let's say, you had an event and you know that you met some of the people on the event, you write that down, just like the person on the CRM. You write down that you had Laura on your podcast, and maybe one day when you start selling to Dreamdata, you would know that it was one of the touches as well. So as much as you can, including your sales and marketing initiatives, all of the touches. And after that, then it gets much easier to understand the big picture, where your demand is coming from. And if it doesn't, then you would balance your gut feeling with what data is telling you how you're capturing that demand that you have created.
And I think that's good advice, because when I created the podcast, it was not intentionally to sell to anyone. We've ended up monetizing it just by coincidence, but that was not the intention. But I know some clients who do use their podcast or our podcast as a way to not necessarily sell, but I think it goes back to what you're saying in terms of building relationships. And I think it goes back to social selling as well too. On the social selling side, you're doing it maybe to a larger group, you're doing it to your network, your second and third degree connections. But on the podcast, if it's a more intimate, like maybe it's a smaller panel or something like that, you still get to know about the other person. You get to find out what are their goals, what are they passionate about, and then build that relationship that way. So in a way, it's not really selling. It goes back to your mantra of educating and building relationships on social selling, and taking that to a more granular level on podcasting. I know some clients have done it that way.
That sounds great. It does. And then it's more natural and more human, so to say. So instead of just inviting people who you want to sell to your podcast, but also creating relationships, and then longer term relationship, no matter what, is going to evolve into at least a collaboration or awareness of your brand for the future. And we all know, if you're talking mostly to marketeers, people are changing jobs like crazy. So it will always be come into something after some time.
Actually, that's a really good point. Yeah, if you think of the turnover, particularly marketing, here it's like 1.5, 2 years. If somebody stays 3 years, it's a miracle. But yeah, people are churning really fast. And it goes back to what you're saying. If they're aware of what you do, even if they leave the company, let's say they're at company A and they move to company B a couple years later, if they know Laura, maybe you're still with Dreamdata and they go with you, or you join a new company, like it doesn't really matter. You have that relationship that you've already built, and that'll continue no matter where you go.
Yep, that's what we stand for. And it goes the same with like social selling as well. You have to trust your employees to do the same, because, well, both they're going to, and possibly the people who they are social selling to are going to leave their companies. But as long as you keep the momentum, support that personal growth, the growth of their brand on the website, not pushing any kind of agendas from your own side, or just asking them to post about your company, that will benefit all of the sites. Like it will create that positive community that both LinkedIn is and what you're talking about from the podcast. It becomes a natural collaboration, and yeah, having a good time with the people.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. Laura, the last question would be, what has been one of the biggest key learnings or advice you would give to people who are embarking on social selling? What's one tip you would give to them?
One tip would be start testing and don't stop. Because the more you test, the more you'll see that people who are watching you, they either don't care, then you don't care either, or they really care and really enjoy your content. So test, and then you'll find your path and you'll see how big of a nice community LinkedIn.
For everyone watching and listening, feel free to share this on WhatsApp, share all the channels which I can't track, I don't mind, share it with your colleague, have fun with it, as long as you learn something, which I'm sure you did. And thank you guys so much, I really appreciate the support, and we'll see you on the next episode.